hope you find some of this information useful and certainly applicable to the context of amateur radio and specifically satellites. I am Mark Hammond. My call sign is N8MH. I have taken a role within about the last year and a half as the Vice President for Educational Relations, and you've heard a lot of the threads and connections to education already in the talks presented by the prior presenters. Acknowledgements and my co-presenter, Mark Spencer, who's assembling over here in the, well, his stuff is. Spence is here somewhere. There he is going to give the second half of the talk. And Mark has been a phenomenal partner in this. In fact, most of the time I find myself standing up and talking about his work. So I figured it would be best if I got him here and you could hear it straight from the source. Why is education important to us? It's a part of our mission. The organization has clearly stated that we're going to do some educational things, and I've highlighted them there. We are a nonprofit, but we're going to promote space education. We're going to seek partnerships with educational institutions, and I think you have seen through the previous talks, those partnerships are clearly forming and establishing as we build the Fox family of satellites. Our vision includes statements of working in cooperation with the educational community. So it's a part of who we are, it's a part of our ethos, and one of the major overarching things that we wish to accomplish. So, it's important to us. Doesn't mean it's easy. You know, we have for a long time been engineering, designing, building, and launching satellites, and then to use them in the educational arena and with Education Connections has challenged us and has caused us to rethink our approach and to rethink some of our missions. But we're off to what I think is a great start as an organization in the last couple of years. It is becoming critical for our ride to space. The Ilana Launch, as Tony presented, I like to remind everyone what the E in Ilana stands for. It's education. It is becoming, you saw Tony's slides that demonstrate the launches run somewhere from $10 million all the way to the low budget price of about $100,000 for a 1U CubeSat. So for us, it has been the connection and the justification for getting to space. There are lots of educational tie-ins. Some are obvious, some are less, and they don't come easily. We have to work at it. Lots of K through 12 STEM opportunities. And that's going to be critical in the longer term. And the opportunities present themselves, and what we need to do is take advantage of the opportunities as we have these assets, both from proposal all the way through commissioning and service. The AMSAT Fox families are great examples, as well as ARRSAT, in which education has been an important element of those missions. In the last year, some of my educational colleagues have had some good extent, and in that effort of trying to experience some of the great things that the ARRS program offers, we had a really good ARRS contact at Pacificon last fall, and some of you may have been there, but I know some of the folks that were key to this were in the audience, or are in the audience today. Joe Spire's here, K6YAO. He spearheaded the whole thing, and we had a great ARRS contact, and in addition to talking, it was a telebridge contact through the Italian station. We also had astronaut Dr. Lee Morin present there to greet the students and the public, and that was a kickoff. We had a youth forum activity thanks to Mike McCardle and Dale Hunsaker have been real good educational partners. We had live satellite QSOs thanks to Tom Diebel, KA6SIP, who, as you hopefully have had time today to go out and see our demonstration area. Those are educational opportunities and educational outreach in and of themselves. You know, we're educating not only education within the community proper of students, but also other hams and the public in general. So education is a really, really broad thing that we're doing. I did not know I was going to have the privilege of following Howard's talk and discussions about the AMSAT UKs, but I usually like to give a plug for them and the FunCube that is offering, in my opinion, a really neat approach to the educational thing. And just a little bit of context. In Howard's talk, he mentioned the matter of the materials science experiment, and it's a science experiment. What our colleagues in the UK have an advantage of, their curriculum that is offered and is mandatory of all students sort of our middle school grade or high school grade, they have very set curricular requirements, and it already includes a material safety experiment that occurs in essentially all the schools in the country. So David, as in G0MRF, I get his call right? Yeah. David Bowman was instrumental in getting a materials experiment flown on the FunCube satellite that is essentially an experiment that's either conducted or simulated in the classrooms around the country. So here was a great opportunity. You have unifying points. You have points that are focused by everyone in the school system, flown on a satellite. They have some really great connections and opportunities. In the United States, we have some agreements. There are some Common Core, it's called, and most states are adopting some specific learning outcomes and things that students are to learn in the classroom, but we don't have the advantage of anything as concrete and neat as what their UK's colleagues are doing. So they're very clever in targeting and optimizing specific things that are available. We've also been establishing educational partnerships with ARRL and NASA, and the ARRL Education Technology Program is Mark Spencer's directing that. We've got good ties. NASA's been a good partner, continues to be with the ARRL program, which is in and of itself a giant educational opportunity and manifestation and reaching into the classroom. So many things that we're doing. But in the last year and a half, we've enjoyed increased collaboration and partnership with those entities. Educational academic partnerships at least the collegiate level you've heard about from Tony's talk. And to remind you, Penn State, is an institution that had a student project to develop these MEMS gyros, these little chips that are going to sit on the satellite and help give attitude determination and whether it's turning, and if so, in what direction and how fast. So we're going to have some good information, we think, and that's going to fly on Fox 1 and A and B, and perhaps even Fox 2, depending on where it is. But the success of the early experiments, but it's a good partnership with an institution at the early stage. The challenge in dealing with the universities, for the most part, is they're very short-term, very focused projects. They're a senior project, or there might be even a year-long project, but the students do the work, they graduate, and they move on. So the good news, NASA's picked up the torch, AMSAT's picked up the torch and carried it on the MEMS gyro, and we're going to fly the experiment and anticipate that the chips will work. And then thanks to the partnership with ARRL and Mark Spencer, he has some really clever ideas on how to use that in the classroom instructionally. So I think you're going to hear a little bit more about that at the end of this talk. The Rochester Institute of Technology was another AMSAT-sponsored student engaged activity in which they worked on the MPPT, the PowerPoint experiment, and there's a nice poster over at our booth this weekend that I encourage you to come by and see. Tony explained it in good detail, but you can come read a little bit of the student perspective of that presentation. So another couple good student projects that are going to impact our satellites. Virginia Tech, with the special payload being the camera, you can see that on the display in the engineering booth. And then Vanderbilt is also going to participate on 2 of the Fox missions, as Tony mentioned, and they both have this theme of radiation science. One is that low proton payload on Fox 1A, and the second is going to be essentially the primary mission of that satellite is going to be to understand various radiation effects. So some great, and those are pretty notable institutions with which Tony has sunk some pretty good hooks and partnerships in developing these proposals, and I'm really happy with that. So that's the collegiate level of sort of engagement. There's more, because the K through 12 is hugely important, but honestly probably presents the biggest challenge to most of us. Couple activities worth mentioning, because I don't think Mark Spencer's going to talk about these this afternoon. Thanks to ARRL ETP, in our engineering booth, we're demonstrating a tracking simulator, a CubeSat simulator. He has at his booth the Mars Landing Robotics Simulator, the Maria project, and also he's done some really clever things, such as a CAT controller to help facilitate sideband communications through a radio that is otherwise, half duplex radio. So some clever things. I'm going to show you a couple quick shots of that, and then I'm going to suggest, if you want to see any more of these, to stop by our booth over at the engineering booth, education portion of that today. Tracking simulator is designated by the arrows. You can see the antenna and the control element. It is the equivalent of that classic Yaesu G5500 and LVB tracker interface, but in a much more portable environment that would let you take that to demonstrate it in a classroom environment or a Hamfest. The neat part is it's software and programmable that students could engage and actually understand exactly how it works, get into the inner workings of it too. So it presents some good programming opportunities. The CubeSat simulator is designated by the arrows in this figure, and we have this one on display at the booth this weekend as well. And it's really clever in that this is a simulator that transmits solar panel voltages. It transmits the battery voltage to the little receiver, which is the short little board here on the left, and that's fed into the computer and then graphed. And you can also use solar panel data to tell whether a satellite is spinning and how fast and in which direction. So some really neat opportunities for that. Here's a simulator data captured, and what you can actually see is, if those of you who've looked at any kind of satellite telemetry, the peaks and valleys represent solar panels going into a light source and coming out, going in and coming out. So it's actually a pretty neat tool. And it presents some great questions. You can ask us, and I've done this with youth that have come by the booth, say, okay, so what if one of the solar panels failed, and then take a yellow Post-it note and stick it over one of the panels and watch it, and they can actually predict which peaks would be affected and which ones would not in terms of direction. So some really great engaging modeling. Useful for Hamfest demos, and we're still making good progress on how to utilize these in the classroom, again thanks to Mark Spencer and his group. The Maria project they have on display over in the ARRL ETP booth, which is at the end of the building. Look for them. They've got this Mars Rover simulation thing. It's really neat. It combines robotics and amateur radio, and robotics is really hot in the classrooms these days for the students and after class activities. So that one's of interest to a lot of youth. Here's a satellite interface that you still selling those, Mark? I'll bet he has some available. Neat way to make use. The challenge is affordable radios for some of the schools and educational environment. And the FT 817 is a good one, other than it's a half duplex radio. So he's got a neat software trick to help facilitate sideband contacts with that. Here's my big pitch. If there's any message I want you to hear today, it's the fact we need some help. We've got specific educational needs. We've got a really slick new web page, and we need some web page authors and some help. We need people helping draft up web pages and keeping our educational content fresh. We need documentation in the realm of photos and stories and things that show all of the good things that is happening in the classroom related to space communications and satellite communications. There are available on the web lots of information and lesson ideas and things, and we need somebody who could mine that data and create a good repository for us that would be available not only to the AMSAT members but others as well. We specifically are interested in K-12 educators that can help with the idea of lesson ideas and plans and how it is that some of these projects can be utilized in the classroom. And you're going to hear some of these specific ideas by example when Spence gives his talk in just a minute. There are also mentors and ground station operators, so I'll give a plug for our ARRS colleagues again too, that we need good mentors and good ground station operators that can help us fulfill the educational mission of ARRS. So if you're of a mind to help people how to do it, or to be the ones on the ground with your station and equipment for direct contacts, we need all kinds of volunteers for that. What can you do specifically? Join AMSAT if you're not a member. Join our AMSAT EDU list and generate some conversation. There's a little traffic that comes across that list, but not a whole lot at this point. So we're hoping to stimulate and have some more conversations on there and sharing of ideas. We need educators, as I've already promoted. Sign up for the ARRL's Teachers Institute program that is perpetuated and sometimes taught by Mark Spencer, but now taught by his proteges. A great opportunity for teachers to learn about amateur radio and satellite communications and all kinds of electronics and things. The key is sometimes getting access to the school, so think about key members and families and educators and get them involved in satellite operations. I think Fox 1A, one of its primary missions is the fact that it is a telecommunications package and that can be used in an educational environment, easy to use access. So we anticipate greatly in November 2014 having a satellite that would hopefully provide some easy demos with great success in the classroom. So that's our goal. So give demos, become active in ARRIS in whatever way you can. Here's my email address. I'm N8MH at AMSAT.org, and if Mark Spencer will come up, he'll wrap up our session, and he's got some slides and some hardware he's going to show you as well. Feel free to email me.